All right, how's it going, everybody? My name's Brandon. I'm just hosting this little talk today. And I wanted to bring something forth. First off, I should say in the beginning, I don't really get much feedback from people. So, if you find this video useful, please definitely, hit the like button. And, if you have anything to add or questions or anything like that, definitely come forward. These are very advanced concepts that the Breatharian Institute brings forward. So I want to make sure that, the most advanced truths can really be taught to children. And so I want to make sure that, I bring them forth in a way that's understandable. So I definitely encourage dialogue and for you guys to, bring forth any questions that you have. So let's see. So today I really wanted to begin talking about something. There was a brother who hit up my personal page, which is Day of America. That's DEYOF America. And that's my Instagram handle. And there was a brother who brought forward something. He's been kind of, I forget what the history of our conversations are, but we began speaking a while ago, quite some time ago, about this thing that people call Wetiko and this thing that people call ego. So what I want to do is begin to demystify not only the ego, but also the inner child and the what's called Wetiko. So again, this is a really advanced thing because there's a lot of people who spend a lot of years doing inner child work, and I too spent a long time, years doing inner child work. I would say I worked very strongly with the inner child from about 2003, let's say, to about 2018. And in that time, I became, what you could say would be, just very advanced in inner child work. I paid a lot of dues, and I'm also what they call inner child communicator. So I actually tune into other people's inner child. I find out where it is in their body, and I can help get messages from people's inner child and deliver them to the people. So basically, this, hey, what's going on, everybody? So basically this whole thing with inner child work I began quite a long time ago, and I found that the inner child is like basically what I would call like the house of, or the home of, I like to check everything as I say it, because it helps me to live in the moment, to check things as I'm saying it. That way I'm not like repeating or recycling what I learned before. I get to stay in the moment. So if you guys see me looking down, I'm checking my pendulum and checking the energy and all these kind of things. So basically, the inner child is like the house of the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail would be considered to be like that original perfect DNA that's within you, your the cosmic DNA, you could say, but that perfect you that still lives within you. Now, I've seen people's inner child before, and I mean like older people. This inner child, how it looks to me is that it looks like somebody who hasn't eaten any food in like forever, and so their inner child will be like skinny and like not like a robust healthy child, but it'll be like a skinny child that's like malnourished. And so I can give people like a message, things to do that their inner child requires to get healthy. And basically, to me, if somebody hasn't eaten a bite of food in 5 years or 10 years, I'm not looking at that body like, oh shit, that's a skinny body. They're poor, they're weak. I'm like, dang, this thing is still alive after not eating for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Like, that is a body of power. I don't care how skinny it is. It's a power body because it's alive after receiving no nourishment from the people. So that's one little point about the inner child. This is a power center. This is not a weak center. Most people go into inner child work just like I did, which is to, you kind of like go to the inner child and, you're like, hey, I'm sorry I left you. I'm sorry I abandoned you. I'm going to be here for you. And then, 20 minutes later, you're back and you're like, I'm sorry I left you again, and it's kind of a never-ending relationship building thing with this inner child. So I went about doing this work with the inner child for just a long time, 15 solid years of inner child work, developing the inner child. Because, those of you who've read my stories and stuff, you know that I came in like with a certain mission to remain or become my original self in my adulthood. So like my whole adulthood, I programmed from the position of my divine imagination as a child. I programmed my whole entire adulthood to come back to my original self. So as an adult, I remembered doing that, and I got really involved with the inner child. So there's a brother here, Brother Kush, is asking any tips on how to tap into what you need to do for your inner child by yourself. I thought that it's intention that counts. It is intention that counts, but you might be surprised by the advice I'm going to give everybody. See, what I found in the end after 15 years of inner child work is that I could have done it in 3 weeks. I could have gotten the results that it took me 15 years to get. It's an amazing thing that I'm teaching here. And again, that's why I'm encouraging people to, hit the like button if you get anything from this, or just engage so that I can know if this message is coming across, because this is, just a very advanced technique that people really spend a lot of time doing inner child work. And what I found is that there's a way around doing inner child work that'll absolutely empower your inner child. And I had told the brother earlier that I was going to do this video about Wetiko, and we'll get around to that because the inner child is related to all this. I'm kind of drawing a framework around a certain, understanding about how to deal with these things in a quick and, efficient way. So, because, like our generations, especially you guys who are younger than me, we want it, and we want it now. I set about getting, enlightened, you could say, at, 20 years old when I went on a vision quest. And if I would have known that it was going to take this long, I would have never started. That's the truth. I don't think I would have ever gone about doing it. So these things that I've learned to advance our enlightenment or go about coming to a position of empowered enlightenment where we know our enlightenment's under our control, there's certain things we can do to quicken that. And this particular technique that I'm about to, get into is a way to avoid years and years of inner child work. Honestly, it's a pain in the butt, It's not that the inner child's a pain in the butt. It's that the process that everybody that I know of who talks about inner child work is coming about this from the position of developing a relationship with the inner child. Now, I think that's important, but I think that can be done in a moment. It's like, how long does it really take to develop a relationship? The inner child is not some wild being like, like even if you're taming like a cat or a wild dog, that only takes like, a few days, if you're dedicated to it. So why should it, take half your life, to develop a relationship with the inner child? Are we really that like out of it or whatever, or is it really like that hard? So I want to get right into, the body of what I'm presenting right now. So in the Breatharian Institute, I would say that we teach that within the body, the physical locale, I would say that there are three main consciousness centers. And then there are two other primary consciousness centers, which are sort of located in the body. So the three main ones that are located in the body are the sacred heart, which is in the thymus region. I've gone into this with you guys before. And then there's the ego, which is located in the spleen. Like here's the bottom of my rib cage, the spleen's about right here. And then the inner child, for most people, is like right at or, below the belly button. So a healthy inner child will be, let me pull out my pendulum and just check this again real quick. A healthy inner child will be like just above the belly button. Once you've really done the work, the inner child will raise up into the solar plexus. For most people, the inner child is located like just below the belly button. Now, what I found after years and years of doing this work with the inner child, I found out a way to hey, what's going on, man? I found out a way to just to really bypass all this hard work with inner child stuff and really develop the relationship with the inner child, where the inner child, which is that original DNA template, is allowed to enliven itself within your system. Then it's not really about relationship, it's about integration. So I'm going to go right into this and begin talking about ego, because ego is the secret to the inner child. And again, nobody's talking about this. So, oh boy, looks like I might have this, looks like, boy, is this the troll back again? I can't tell. Yeah. Oh yeah, I wonder if I can block this guy. And there's someone, Leon something. Yeah, he trolls me every time I come on, so. And he offers nothing of value, and that's the way parasites are. Parasites don't bring anything to the table. They don't offer anything of value. They just come on other people's forums, and try and bring them down, because honestly, our existence threatens these people, because we're basically dissolving them with our consciousness, because, they're full of shit, and, yeah, they're just, they don't bring anything of value to the table. Now, so yeah, Leon, Leon Harpley, Harpley, 9745. So I'm going to screenshot this dude so I can, eventually just block him out, because this dude is like completely useless. So, yeah, well, it looks like I just, I hit him, which is nice. So, yeah, that's the way trolls are, man. They're just parasitic, and if something's bad for a parasite, it's good for us, and they don't offer anything or bring anything to the table. And so, yeah, it looks like I did just kick him out, which is really nice. So basically, the inner child, just to demystify the inner child, it's the original DNA template that is within you that can really quickly be enlivened. So I'm going to move right from the inner child and, get to how we can turn 20 years of inner child work into a couple of months of really awesome work. And so I want to get right into that. So the ego, so I when I was 4 years old, or no, shoot, I wasn't 4 years old. I was between 2 and 3 years old, and I know because I remember the house that I was living in, or the trailer as it is. that we were living in. My stepdad walked into the room, and I was just a real conscious child. You know, the one gift that my parents really gave me is they just kind of left me alone. You know, they didn't really know how to kind of raise me or help me, but they just knew to keep kind of, you know, my abusive relatives and things away from me. So I was allowed to just be in my consciousness and in my imagination and stuff. So when I was 2.5, 3 years old, my stepdad walks in the house. He walked in our trailer, and there was, you know, what I call now like a holographic entity. It looked like a gremlin, actually, but this was way before the movie Gremlins came out, you know, because I was born in '77, so this was right before 1980. You know, I hadn't even been to see Star Wars or anything like that at this point. And this entity like flew off of his body, and it flew and it hit me. And I mean, it hit me like a sledgehammer. It was hardcore. And I was helpless to do anything about this holographic entity that was trying to engraft itself on my consciousness. Now, what I found was that as much as I wrestled with this thing, I could not get it off me. Now, the reason that I couldn't get it off me, I found out much later in life, had to do with the food that I was being fed was in harmony with it. So I couldn't get it out of me because of food. So that's why we have to be really careful what we eat, because it will invite entities and stuff, because like attracts like. Like, even if the entity's not in harmony with you per se, which it's not, you know, what you put in your body, it might be in harmony with. So the entities use the anchor of what we eat to anchor itself into our system. So I wasn't aware of how the hell or why I could not wrestle this thing away from my consciousness. But I basically wrestled this thing until I was 8 years old. And when I say that it was a foreigner, I mean that to the utmost degree. I basically, up to that point, I never even thought a negative thought. You know, and that's the truth. My mind was pure, it was clear, it was clean, and I had no idea what a negative thought was, you know, until this thing hit me. And its thoughts were aggressive, its thoughts were like warlike, you know. It was an aggressive spirit that antagonistic is the word I was looking for. It was like an antagonistic spirit. And I knew that its thoughts weren't mine, but I could see that it was trying to bury itself in my consciousness and get me to forget that it was there. Because if you think that its thoughts are your thoughts, then if I was to forget that this entity came and engrafted itself on my consciousness, how could I ever get rid of it, right? So that's why I made it my business to come back to my original self in my adulthood, because as a child, I had no power to get rid of this thing. You know, I just didn't. So I planned and I prayed and I used my imagination to create a future where I could, you know, get this thing out of my life, you know, so I could come back to the one that I am, you know, the one pure being that I am. And this was a heck of a trip, you know, coming back to the original self, but it's been, you know, my whole life's journey has been to do this, you know. So I say all of this about this entity engrafting itself on my consciousness for a specific reason. Because the thing is we talk about ego, like ego is a bad guy, right? Like ego, there's something wrong with ego. Like ego is all of our problems, right? Now, please, let's look at this like scientists, you know? If the ego is what keeps us alive, then how the heck is the ego the one that's causing all the problems in everybody's life? Now, people, please hear me here. How does that make sense? If your ego is the one that tells you, hey, look out, somebody's coming, you know, down the street, get out of the road, you know, if the ego is the survivor, you know, the one who makes sure that our body gets through all kinds of things, you know, then how is ego the one who's destroying relationships, you know, destroying, you know, our minds, just kind of destroying everything? See, the ego has become like the whipping boy of the spiritual community. And I don't think that's fair. I actually found that the ego is a divine body. It's one that came with us. You're not going to get rid of it. Anybody who says they're trying to annihilate the ego, good luck. You know, you can't destroy the ego. It's never going to happen because it's a survivor. It'll survive no matter what you try and do because its job is to ensure your survival. You know, the survival of the physicality, your physical body. So on this line, does it really make sense that something's trying to destroy you and keep you alive at the same time? You know, it really doesn't. So now we've gone over a little bit about what is the inner child. We've gone over a little bit what is the ego, and we've gone over a little bit of what is Wetiko. So Wetiko, or, you know, this holographic entity, was an entity that tried to engraft itself on my consciousness, you know, and it tried to get me to forget that it was there so I would think that its thoughts were my thoughts, okay? So to make sense of this, you know, we've got to look at this like, what is ego? Is ego trying to destroy me or keep me alive? It's one or the other, you know, it can't be both. Hey, what's going on, brother? Dahudi, what's up, man? And yeah, so here's the deal, you know, here's what I really came here to say, you know. The ego is a very special divine body, and there's a way to chill it out that will grow your inner child like you just would not believe. See, the consciousness centers in the body are the sacred heart, then down here in the spleen, you've got the ego, and then down below that, you've got the inner child. Now, the inner child and the ego are the two consciousness centers that are beneath the heart. So once you fully get up into the heart, everything really starts to move through the heart, and there's a lot of harmony between ego and inner child. But until then, there's more or less what you could call a battle for space beneath the heart, which is in the solar plexus, where the ego and the inner child are. Now, a lot of people do years and years and years of inner child work to get the inner child to come forth and play, right? It's not necessary. You don't really have to address the inner child more than once or twice. Like, hey, what's going on? I know what you are. I know you're there, and, you know, I welcome you. You know, thank you. That's really all that's required for the inner child. If you want to do a little apologizing for leaving your inner child behind, do it, but make it little. You know, because the inner child doesn't need your damn sympathy. You know, it's a body that sat there alive with no food for how long, right? So when I was trying to decode all of this and figure out, like, what is ego, you know, I could feel the ego here and there in the body. I could feel it all over the place. And I was like, geez, you know, when I look for the ego, it can be in this arm, it can be in my head, in my neck, you know, it can be, you know, just everywhere. And then I finally checked. I was like, well, does it have a home? You know, does the ego have a home? And I got a real strong, you know, energy around the ego having a home. So then I just went about finding where the home is. Is it in the head? Because I thought at first the energy of the ego would be in the head. It's like, no. I was like, well, you know, is it in the throat? No. The heart? You know, no. And eventually I found that the home of the ego is in the spleen. So it doesn't matter where the ego shows up. You go to the spleen, you go to the home of the ego to chill it out. Now here's what happened. When we were young, all of us went through abuse. You know, all of us went through abuse. And when we went through the abuse, what I called the master, who is, you know, the Neo-Morpheus Trinity, if you use a matrix language, or, you know, it's the one that you are, you know, it's the master, you know, the master that you are had to basically recede within your consciousness. And at that point, the ego had to come in and take control because you had to stay alive. Any of you who remember anything about your childhood, I'm sure you remember that, you know, you had to survive. There are things you had to do to just make it. We had to live we had to live another day, you know? And so the ego did its job, you know, by coming in and basically taking over our lives, you know? But the ego is not Wetiko. Wetiko is more or less what we would call possession. It's an alter self. It's an alternate consciousness that is not us, you know, but that's not ego, you know. Wetiko is something else. Whatever's trying to destroy your life, that can't be ego. Ego's trying to help you live. Now, here comes the way to build a relationship with the inner child that will turn 20 years of work into 2 weeks, 2 months at the most. Basically, what you do is, you know, you take your hand, you put it on your spleen. And when you do this, you'll feel this, you'll feel like a racing, you know, because the ego is a body that's not meant to stay in control all the time. It's not meant to be what you would call like the leader. You know, it doesn't have information that you have. The ego does, like when I divine and I find water for people, the ego doesn't know where the water is, you know? When I'm looking for information for people, you know, to help them out, the ego doesn't know that information. The ego knows one thing: physical survival, period, you know? So when you put your hand on your ego home, which is the spleen, basically how to talk the ego into letting go of control is you basically go in and you say, you know, I'm like, here's how I talk to the ego. I'm like, you know, dear, you know, super special, really awesome ego. That's kind of like the language that I use with the ego, because I want the ego to know how much I appreciate it, you know. This ego kept me alive. Nobody likes to be in control. If for years and years at a time, our egos have been driven to madness because the master hasn't come home yet. So the way for the master to take control, which is you, the real you, to take control of all this here, you know, is by putting your hand on your ego and your home of your ego, which is the spleen, and just saying, you know, thank you for taking control and keeping me alive for this long. I really appreciate you, you know. And you can step back now. You can relax. We're not in any danger, you know. We're in the home right now. There's no danger. Nobody's about to drive through my home and, you know, take out the living room or whatever. If there is, I want to hear from you, you know. So you at the same time invite the ego, hey, if you've got some ego related information for me on physical survival, I want to hear it, you know. I value the ego, you know. But, you know, if there's not anything important, just chill out, calm down, relax. The master's home. And when you do this, the ego it'll curl up on your lap and start to purr like a cat, for real. The ego will chill out. And when the ego chills out, it allows the inner child to have the space to rise up within your consciousness. It is a trip, my friends. So I'm going to let y'all chew on that for a moment while I go back and read these comments. I'm going to put my glasses on, make all this a little bit easier. So it says, yeah, innocence too. Well, let me go back to the beginning here, make sure I didn't miss anything. What's up, everybody? Any tips on how to tap into what you need to do for the inner child by yourself? You know, that's really it. You just tap into the inner child for a moment and be like, hey, how's it going? You know, you can apologize if you want, but honestly, the inner child doesn't need your apologies. And that's one of the great misconceptions right now, is that, you know, the inner child, we're supposed to apologize and kind of, you know, suck up to the inner child. It doesn't need that crap, you know. What it needs is for the master to come home, you know, and that's you, you know. So I don't want him to starve. Yeah, I feel you on that. Well, this is how to feed him, and is by basically taking a hold of the ego and saying, hey, chill out, little ego. You kept me alive. I appreciate you, but chill out. We're not in physical danger. The master's home now. You do that, and your inner child is going to really have room, space within your solar plexus to rise up in your consciousness and express itself. That's the thing about the inner child. It just wants to express itself. It doesn't need your apologies. It's not a stranger, it's you. Yeah, thanks for helping me kick that dirtbag out of this room. But the agents will continue to come in. Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And trolls, I always kind of like to poke at the trolls a little bit to see if, I can, engage with them and get them to bring anything of content or quality forward. And if they can't, yeah, I just get rid of them, So that's my style of dealing with these trolls. It's just, I don't like to say nothing. I like to engage. So it says, yeah, I forgot you mentioned about the food. I haven't been eating, very mindful of what I've been eating. Yeah, you wanna make sure who you're feeding when you eat, for sure. But that's a science for you and I can get together. That's for the classes, because that's a deep one. That's what mainstream pushes, and people who follow New Age just follow whatever is said blindly. Yeah, but the thing is a lack of information. People don't have this information. Like, seriously, like, there's only 4 people listening to this, but how many times have any of you heard about, creating this kind of relationship with the ego that allows the inner child to grow and have the space it needs? It's just, people don't have this information. I found this because I'm a scientist, and I looked into this for years as a scientist. Inner child is your child's self that never dies. It's always there with you. That's correct. It never dies. And that means that it's a power body. That means it's not weak. Even if you see your inner child and it looks weak, you got to think about that. Like, damn, you look weak because you haven't had any nutrients in years. But that means that, your inner child's very powerful. If anybody who doesn't eat for years and still is there, that's a power body, not a weak body. So, yeah, so you don't want to baby, the inner child. It doesn't even need that garbage. What it needs is for the master to come home and step up. So when you're experiencing detachment from ego, like, let's say through breathing techniques, is that when you're experiencing your inner child and what it has shown to you? Well, I would encourage you to distinguish what is ego from what is a foreign entity. Like, so a lot of people say, oh, my ego is saying, like, all these bad things. It's talking about, sodomy and, just like about like, sex. It's like obsessed. And they say all these crazy things the ego's saying. And I'm like, wait a sec. That's not the ego. The ego is bent on your physical survival, period. So when you're doing breathing techniques, I seriously doubt you can't detach from the ego. It's not possible. You may be detaching from a foreign entity or from a possession, but you're not detaching from ego, because ego is not going anywhere. I've never heard of anybody successfully getting rid of ego. So we have to really get rid of the thought that we can get rid of ego, because it ain't going nowhere. The ego is going nowhere. So it says, do you have any books out, or can you recommend any? No, honestly, I can't. I'm sorry that I can't recommend anything on this, because nobody's talking about it. What I would say is, please share it and, encourage people to, explore this in a new way, because, all this talk about, destroying the ego and stuff is just, it's useless. And, inner child work could take us 3 days instead of, 30 years, for real. So, I would say, just maybe let's, try and get people interested in dealing with this from another perspective, because this is quick. You put your hand on your spleen and you talk your ego down off the cliff. The ego is in a mad state because it's been in control since the master went away. The master is you, the real you that had to recede back into your consciousness when you were anywhere between, being born to 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. For girls, it's usually a little bit later, but eventually the master has to recede, And so as adult gods and goddesses, we get to come and do what it is that we're here to do as adult gods and goddesses, because as children, we were more or less subject to the environment our parents created, So am I on YouTube? Yes, I'm on YouTube. Check out Breatharian Institute. If you look that up on YouTube, you'll find our channel, So it says not necessarily killing the ego on purpose, but calming it unintentionally. And what opens up to you is just amazing. Exactly. You calm the ego by, that you can do it through meditation and stuff. I like to put my hand on my spleen and do it because it's extremely direct. And like the ego, it connects the physicality to the consciousness in a way that says physically, ego, chill out, calm down. The master's home. We're not in any danger. If there's any danger, I want to know it, but we're not in any danger, so chill out and be quiet. And your ego will just chill out and be quiet, because who's the master? You are the ego, You are. So you just command it like that, and the ego will, like I said, it's like it curls up on your lap and it will start to purr. It's a funny thing, that happens with the ego. It wants to chill out. That's why when people say, I'm wrestling the ego, I'm like, no, you're not. You're wrestling with a foreign entity. Like, the ego is not trying to wrestle you, You just have to calm it down for a moment and it will chill out. Yeah, brother, it says you're the only person who's spoken about this. I know. It's been one of the biggest, problems that I've had is how do I present something so multidimensional to the people? It's difficult. I haven't really, been able to put together a full curriculum yet because it's very difficult to present something so multidimensional to people. So I'm going to keep reading these comments. I'm trying to make it to the bottom. So again, thank everybody for joining. Are there any good books on transitioning to breatharian? Wiley had the Yellow Diet book that he put out. I believe there's a link to it for free on the breatharian.com website. I really don't know any because I'd never read any books on breatharianism. I read back in the day, I want to say Bernard Jensen has like a colon health book. I basically, got to work cleaning the body. I never really set out to be a breatharian, That was never really my intention. It's just that, I met the father of breatharianism, Wiley Brooks, when I was 4 years old. And when I met him again as an adult, he was like a father to me. And so I just more looked to live in integrity with reality. I just always wanted to be one being. And so that's what led me to breatharianism. So I would say, that it's not about being eating or not eating or anything like that. It's about being, your real self. And, breaking the addiction to food can happen in another way. One of the most powerful things that I do to get away from food is I get away from people who eat. And, I go in the woods and when I'm not around other bodies that are eating, then my body says like, I don't need food. And then I just go days and days without eating because the body just, doesn't need it. I think, this is for brother, let's see, it says Mishi Beshua Wagon. Sorry about destroying your name, brother. I'm very sorry about that. Asking about the books on transitioning to breatharian. I would say the first thing to do is to, work on breaking the addiction to food. And one of the biggest things to know is that there are different reasons why we eat. Sometimes we eat because we're around people who are carrying pain that they refuse to acknowledge. And if we're conscious beings, then our body acknowledges the pain, that they're not acknowledging. And, and then we eat to basically bring our energy down, So, understand that there are a lot of different reasons why we eat, or that we eat. It's not as simple as I'm hungry. Like the hungry thing can easily be broken through fasting and just by breaking the addiction to food. But then why do we eat? We eat for a number of reasons. The biggest being, because we're around other people who are eating. It's a social agreement, And when we don't eat, like when I start driving home from my trips that I take into the woods, I start to get hungry when I begin passing people on the street, when I begin thinking about the business that I got to do and business meetings and, things I've got to do with people in the world. Then I start to get hungry. But most of us don't get away from people long enough to really, let ourselves just get through the addiction, But once that addiction is broken, then you can begin to really look at transitioning to so-called breatharian, in a number of ways. Now, breatharian just means one who breathes. So everybody's a breatharian, Now it's really then becomes a matter of, well, what do I eat and what does the food stimulate in my body? It's more of a science than something we just shouldn't do. It is something we should do. Wiley always said we ate our way into these problems and we'll eat our way out of them. So eating is a science in itself. I really can't get into that now because it's just too deep. I mean, it's too deep. It takes a lot of knowledge and sharing of information to get into the science of eating. I'm going to take a drink of this plasma water right now, but start to read a little more comments. Brother Kush says that maybe it was detaching from possession then. Exactly. Like if you're feeling detached and you're feeling like, your original self when you're meditating, that's what it is. It's not you detaching from ego. It's the ego's chilling out because it's not required. Again, when I'm divining, when I'm looking for water, when I'm getting information from people, the ego, I might put my hand on my ego and be like, I chill out. You don't have the information I need. The ego doesn't. The ego has information about physical survival only. So anything else the ego is saying, just tell it to chill out, because it doesn't have the information you need. Thank you, people. Sorry about that. So, and it says, but I don't understand because I've experienced nirvana with breathing where everything is peaceful and quiet. Exactly. And this is what people in the psychedelic and spiritual communities call ego death, because they're incorrect. What, you gonna tell me ego dies like that and then resurrects itself so quick? Well, that makes it a fucking god, So, like, I'm sorry to curse. I am working my way out of that, based on the fact that I have children in my life now and I can see what happens when curse words hit their body. But, people call it ego death because they don't understand. And the proof that it's not dead is that it comes back. The ego doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It'll just chill out. It's meant to be here. If you didn't have an ego, you couldn't make it down a flight of stairs if your life depended on it. That's just the truth. The ego's like, yeah, put 1 foot here, put 1 foot here. The ego is something to be grateful for. It's nothing to try and kill. And when we do this, we'll find ourselves advancing toward enlightenment at extreme speed. So I'm still trying to go down, this whole ego death that people call. Would you call that calming it? Yeah. I would call that calming the ego and, getting rid of everything that doesn't belong to you or that isn't you. And the ego is part of you. It's not going anywhere. So any entities, anything like that, when you're meditating, it's got to go. and you might feel the death of that, you know, because it doesn't have a home with you anymore, and you might experience it dying. It's not. It's just leaving. Because the thing about enlightenment is it's basically getting rid of everything that doesn't belong to you. That's what it is. And, you know, no worries, because if something belongs to you, it can't be taken away. So it's all good. You can give everything away. Everything. So even at the highest dimensions, you still obtain your individuality. Yeah, you know, whatever individuality is, you know, it's we're meant to be this way. You know, we're meant to have these bodies and kind of go about it in this way. So what's going on, Melissa? Thanks for joining us, and thanks for all your support, you know, everywhere. So yeah, I just wanted to put out this little piece of information. And, you know, if people begin to do this, then, you know, years and years of inner child work can be cut down to minutes and days. You know, you guys who are younger than me should be able to do things a lot faster than me. You know, I took a lot of damage in life, you know. I did. You know, it's been a hard life for me. I've suffered. I've had to eat out of garbage cans. You know, I've had a hard life, you know, but it's prepared me for, you know, a certain type of position with power where not only am I not corruptible, but, you know, I can also serve people who are at the bottom of the mountain. You know, most people who are in the position that I'm in monetarily and spiritually overlook the bottom of the mountain. I come from the bottom of the mountain. I've had to find my way to the top, and I can trace my steps back to the bottom. So, you know, it's my, you know, particular thing that I've had to go through, you know, but you guys who are in a way less damaged than we older folks, you should be able to move a lot faster than us. So that's why I always say, you know, I'm going to give you all the information that I can that helps you to move as fast as possible, because in a way, my painful life, breaking my sternum, you know, so that my sacred heart could live in this body, you know, so like these are pains I'm looking to help everybody else avoid. So this teaching here, you know, yet people would say, oh, you should charge for this. Yeah, I mean, I will charge for this, but I'll also give it away for free. But, you know, when we're in class, of course I'll charge for classes, you know. But I'm basically giving everybody everything for free, just like Wiley did, you know. Yes, Wiley charged $10 billion for his workshops, but he also gave everybody everything for free. The $10 billion workshops were meant to help billionaires bring their money into the new world, because they can't do it on their own. They're going to have to come through somebody like me to get their money into this world, you know, because their money will keep them in the old world. In a way, Wiley was offering them a $10 billion gift, you know. So that's, you know, these teachings that took me, you know, a lot of pain and stuff to gain, you know, you guys can really just go back and listen to this video over and over again, and you really should be able to get through what took me 20 years to get through, and you should be able to do it in 20 months at the most, you know, 20 weeks more like, or 20 days, you know. And if you're real young and you can really hear what I'm saying, you know, this whole thing should take about 20 minutes, you know, and that's for real. So yeah, thank you, Manny. I appreciate that. It says, glad to hear this today. Much love all. I really appreciate that. I'm still having difficulties with divining and food, and I'm also trying to balance it with gaining weight and stuff, trying to gain healthy weight. Don't worry about weight, you know. Weight, you know, it's like Wiley lifted 10 times his body weight on national television, you know. So weight isn't really connected to power, you know. It is more connected to our image of ourselves, you know. And I would say, you know, if you can get rid of that desire, get rid of it, man. It's not real. It's not doing anything for you. You know, if you want to be strong, focus on that. I will be having, you know, hosting these ascension classes, because Wiley walked me to and then through the wall of fire. And this wall of fire burned away everything that wasn't me. And now I'm walking other students to it and through it. And it's helping me see exactly what Wiley did with me, so I can help everybody else. So we will have classes on this, on how to balance your power rather than build your power. You don't want to build your physical power too much, because you want to come to a place where you're at a 50-50 balance of physical and spiritual, you know. So we can talk about that in class. I would say hit me up to get a pendulum. I am putting everybody's pendulums together right now. Send $1. Go to breatharian.com and put $1 in my PayPal account. Give me your contact information, you know, with your name and stuff like that, and I'll find you or create a pendulum for you that's in harmony with your higher self. And then you'll be able to get information directly from the higher self with no static. And then, you know, divining for food and stuff will become a lot easier. So yeah, I know that's a tough one, you know. So yeah, thank you, Central Universe, for joining. I appreciate you once again. Good to see you. And yeah, it says, this all sounds like you're pointing in the direction of Enidia, which is what, breatharianism? Maybe you could clarify. I was looking into it, and it's a way of life I'd love to be able to live in this lifetime. You know, the thing is addiction to food you can really begin to break anytime, you know, but do it alone, you know. Understand that when your body gets around other bodies that eat, it makes your body want food, because basically the more that we begin to purify our bodies, the more that we feel other people's pain. And this is why most people go back to eating. It's not really hunger. It's the body's desire to not feel the pain of other people, you know. So I'd say, you know, if you're really looking into becoming a breatharian, try and go on camping trips. Try and get away from people, you know. Lock yourself in your house, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, really work on breaking the addiction, you know. And I'll also think a little bit more on that and see if there's anything else I can come up with. Hey, what's going on, Beetlejuice? I appreciate you for joining us, man. This is a brother. I can't really tell you who Beetlejuice is or what he is, but there's a certain resonance in his work that he's a real dude, and you know, I don't know what else to say about him. There's something about, you know, the resonance of his work. It's really real. So thank you so much for clarifying and confirming my assumptions. Yeah, and introducing this perspective. Yeah, man, this is, you know, all should be way easier than people are making it when it comes to this inner child ego stuff, you know. And if we can get rid of thinking that we can get rid of ego, you know, then we're going to be a lot better off. Yeah, living off of sun, that's what it is, man. You know, you just got to get out in the morning, you got to get out in the evening and get the sun, you know. And, you know, you just kind of got to make it work for you. And you'll find that, you know, the more that you eat real foods like plasma energy, just the less you crave anything else because you're full, you know. And that's, you know, the point. You know, there's a number of things you can do to fill you up. You can get plasma from the earth. You can get plasma from the sun, because your body, your real body, is plasma. It's a plasmatic body. Central Universe, can you explain the plasma water, how the plasma water is created through divining? Well, the plasma water isn't really created only through divining. It's basically created through, you know, I'll just give you the kind of back engineering of it. So I have plasma water that I harvested from jars full of water with nanoparticles in the water. So creating the nanoparticles is the thing that really requires divining, because creating the nanoparticles requires putting together a system where you have metal plates suspended in salt water that are connected in a certain way, and you basically harvest the nanoparticles from the environment. And nanoparticles are individual atoms. Like if you look at the periodic table here, the you know, basically all of the elements, when they become molecules, they're surrounded by a group of a certain amount of electrons. nanoparticles are individual molecules or atoms that are uh, they're considered, so they're basically not held by they're not held by a group of electrons. They're in a sea of free energy, what you call, or free electrons. So these molecules, are created in a specific way that I divine, because what I found is if I don't use a salt that's in the harmony with my higher self, then I basically create a nanoparticles that might give me energy, but that energy pulls me in the wrong direction. So it feels good, but only for a time. And basically what I want to do is use any food, which water is a food, and I want to use the physical world to accelerate the growth of my higher self and the means for my higher self to dominate this reality. So in a way, it's a passive system in that, like, all I'm doing is drinking water. But what I'm actually doing is a very empowered system of creating the physical environment to pull my higher self into this physical reality so that my higher self can dominate this physical reality. So, there's a lot that people would need to kind of know and kind of have in check before creating that kind of food for themselves. So I don't know anything but to tell people to come to class, and to send people pendulums, have people send me, at least $1 in my PayPal account so that I can create pendulums for them that are in the energy of their higher self. Now, if people want to contact me or whatever and go to their own pendulum store, sure, I can help you on the phone to make sure that you have a pendulum that's in harmony with your higher self. But, that's my time as well. So either way, people have to, basically come off the money in a way to create the world that they want to live in. So what I provide is information, but I also provide the tools. In the beginning with Wiley, I just gave Wiley 10% of everything I earned, period, and it helped support him and what he was doing, and it allowed me to have somebody who was where I wanted to be that could give me the information and the tools that I needed. And so, you have to have a pendulum that's in harmony with your higher self. The higher self is, the higher self, I don't even really divine specifically the higher self. I mean, I do, but when I check above the head, this is what I call the house of the higher self. It's where the higher self kind of descends to a point where it can touch and create this holographic physicality. But the higher self is above all this, So that's how I created the nanoparticles to create the plasma water. Is that I created them by picking a container, plates, the nano coating solution, the caustic solution, and the salts to create a food that was in harmony with my higher self, and that food is plasma water. So in the future, maybe we want to do something like, start a GoFundMe page or some stuff. I think I don't think that system is in the correct energy, but some of them are. Patreon is in a great energy, and maybe it's me who makes everybody's nanoparticles and just sends them in the mail. I've done it with all my the current students who've been with the Institute for a while. I created and sent nanoparticles to them so that they could experience what it's like to have a free energy device, food, that they can kind of produce for themselves. And but I had to send them their nanoparticles, even though they've been in this for years. It's just best to just make sure that you're getting what you're wanting to get. So yeah, that was the plasma water. How is the water effective for the spiritual and physical body? Well, what it does is, it creates an environment where your spiritual self can come and dominate the physical body, which is the whole point. Like, who's running this, the physical or the spiritual? That's why you want to take in foods into your body that are in harmony specifically with your spiritual self. Then, by default, you don't even have to do anything but just enjoy your food, and it invites your higher self to come dominate the physical reality, because you are what you eat. So, it's important that we make sure that we eat foods that are in harmony with what we want to dominate this world, which is the higher self. So, what's going on, Cochise? And yeah, I just passed Cochise Stronghold just 3 days ago. I'll post some pictures. There's a place called Dragoon that I got some amazing photos of. It's right by Cochise. How do we come to class? Yeah, just go to the site. I would say first, really, send me, put $1 in my PayPal account so I can find you a pendulum. The first classes I host, I'm not inviting people who don't have pendulums because it's useless. People will be, asking me questions and stuff. And if my point is helping everybody to find everything for themselves. Everything that Wiley did for me was to set me free. I don't count on anybody for information. That's why I can't tell anybody what books to read about breatharian, because I don't read books, really. I mean, I read like legal documents, I read titles, I read contracts, but, that's because I'm in the business of creating the kind of world I want to create, But other than that, if I need information, I have a perfect oracle right here, and I know how to access it. And that's what I'm looking to do for everybody. So go to breatharian.com, at least send me $1, and commit yourself to spending some money on classes. I'll make them work for everybody, but you've got to get a pendulum that's in harmony with your higher self. Most people I send pendulums to, I don't even like to send one pendulum. I like to make them at least 2, so that, and I don't mind throwing in an extra pendulum, if I'm making them, because it takes me a few minutes to make them. This is a very fast technique. It's meant to move like lightning. And things can, like, I want to show you guys something real quick. So this is, excuse me, this is a necklace that is mostly in harmony with my higher self and divining. I put it together, and then I could feel a little bit of a drag on it. So I got to take it apart. A few of these blue beads, I'm sorry for the noise, everybody. My bad, I forgot about the mic. But a few of these blue beads are not in harmony with my higher self. This pendulum weighs a little bit, like right at a quarter pound, and it's one that I make that I can, carry with me. It's kind of, beautiful, and but I can feel just a little tiny drag on it, like it's not quite 100% where it needs to be. So I'm just going to take it apart, fix it, and make a situation where it's 100% in harmony with my higher self. And I can do this for other people too. I can make people necklaces, bracelets, so that the pendulums are always, with you. This is like aquamarine and just clear quartz, and it's going to be just up to people what they want, But in the beginning, there's no sense in divining unless you have, in my opinion, unless you have a pendulum that's in harmony with your higher self. Because if you don't have a pendulum that's in harmony with your higher self, there's no way in hell you're going to get 100% accurate results from it. You won't be able to get all of the information that you need with no static or anything like this. So I'm going to keep reading these questions. That's right. The real Beetlejuice says, I am the beginning, the end, the Alpha and the Omega, born as a child in flesh. No one knows right now. Well, I know. And, that's what's up. I'm glad you know, because if you know, the whole universe knows. It's just a matter of time, brother, and, just keep knowing what you know, and I know you will. So that's peace. Yeah, man. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everybody. How old are you? The fasting has you looking young. Well, I did look a lot younger before breaking my sternum. I really didn't look a day over 18. And, and right now what's happened is I moved into a mining town, and I made some investments in a mining town. And it's really been a hell of a hard position for me to be in, living around mines and things, because I just had no idea what I was getting into. So I do feel like, well, I'm in an environment that's been just decimated, and but the good news is, through my nationality and things, I'm able to do things here that nobody else can do, which is hold these mines accountable, create a position to basically hold everybody accountable in this area. And it would have never happened if I wouldn't have been tricked into coming down here, from above, you know. So when I'm living in Tucumcari and things, I'm sure I look about 10 years younger. Somebody's knocking at my door. Yeah, you're going to have to go away. And yeah, I'm 43. I'm getting ready to be 44. And, when I was 4 years old, I programmed my whole adulthood to come back to my higher self, my one original self. And basically the plan that I created when I was 4 years old was that by the time I was 40, I would be like really locked into the path of being my original self. And by the time I was 44, I would be completely locked in, and I would be the one, the one that I am. And so, yeah, I'm right at 44 years old, brother. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Just PM me, DM me, whatever they call it these days. What is the pendulum? Explain what it does and what it is. So this, this is another one that I use. It's basically, all it is a physical material. Most of the times I use clear quartz, and it's a physical material that is in harmony with my higher self. And I know it's in harmony with my higher self because I just checked, and that's what I'm checking right now. And that's why it's spinning, because I'm locking into the reference point within my own mind of my higher self, right? And then I'm lining up the higher self and the pendulum. And if these two are in harmony, then I get the harmony spin, which is counterclockwise. And if they're not in harmony, then I get the disharmony spin. I wonder if I have any pendulums around that aren't in my higher self energy right here. No, but the thing is it's not a judgment thing. It doesn't, if a pendulum's not in my higher self energy, it's not a bad thing. It's not good or bad. It's harmony or disharmony, and I'm looking to get certain results. So, I stick with harmony. And, but a lot of times I recycle my pendulums. I give them to my students because they'll be in harmony with my students' energy as they move up. As we move up, what was in harmony with us today is different than yesterday. Like, everybody talks about today being a new day, but who's developed the science in living like that? Living the reality where today is a new day. And, this is what we really need to begin to look at is that our own desires can keep us trapped, our own likes. Because everything you like is based on what you knew yesterday, and that is irrelevant to a being who's really looking to live their higher self in this world. The last thing I give a damn about in the world is what I like or dislike. This is why I don't care about people's opinions, because I don't even care about mine like that. Like, why would my opinion matter to me? It's what I know. There's no adventure there. There's no adventure in what we know. There's only what we know. So the pendulum, first off, is within us. This is just something that makes divining easy. I also use the body. The body will rotate in the same way. I'm not to where I have to use the pendulum, but man, it's so quick and it's so fast. And Wiley's technique of divining, I have to acknowledge that, Wiley, I never saw him go to the bathroom without a pendulum. He was always checking to see what his body was getting rid of in the bathroom through his urine, And so it's like, if Wiley always had to use it, maybe I'll always have to use it. Neither Wiley nor me really accepted that that's the ultimate. Really, we, I think, should be able to get to a point eventually where we just are automatically drawn to whatever it is that's going to, that's in harmony with our higher self. So Beetlejuice says, I have something that works as an extension of myself. Maybe that is how your pendulum works. Yeah, Yeah, it's just an extension. It's what you would call like just an extension of my heart energy. The heart energy flows through the hands, throws through the body, and it's really just a kind of like a meter. It's like a little meter to pick up on the finest of energies, so that I can pick up on the finest of things, the way that fields interact with each other and things, pre-creation, so that I can check the result of an experiment before I conduct the experiment. These are the things that I use a pendulum for. Because if time doesn't exist, why the heck should I have to conduct an experiment before I know basically what the parameters of the result's going to be? It doesn't make any sense to have to go through trial and trial and trial. So it says from Kush, how do you know about what other people's higher selves need? Well, I check their higher self as individuals, and I go in not knowing what I'm going to find. I never know what I'm going to find. That's the fun part. The fun part is in not knowing. Not knowing. Knowing is not fun at all. Knowing what we know, if we're focused on what we know, it's always getting smaller and smaller. If we're focused on what we don't know, life just starts to like, whoa, so amazing. There's so much I don't know. It's incredible. What an adventure, That's what happens when we get into what we don't know. See, I don't have to know anything, because Wiley gave me a technique of finding everything I need to find for myself. So who cares what I know? Who cares what I think? Who cares what my opinion is? I get to be on this great adventure. They say in the Bible, that we need to develop that it takes the mind of a child to get into heaven. This is how to develop the mind of a child. You're looking at basically the mind of a child right now talking to you. It's just that I'm in an adult God body, and I have adult God choices to make about this world, But I basically have the mind of a child to do it with, because my mind is not polluted with what I know and what I think and what my opinions are and what my likes are. So when I went car shopping to find a car that was in harmony with my higher self, it was just this grand adventure, because then I'm like, wow, what's it going to be like when I'm driving a car that's in harmony with my higher self? It's going to be inviting my higher self to drive down the road. Wow, what an adventure. Then I didn't care what I liked. It's just irrelevant. Who cares what I like? I'm getting ready to get into a car, and my higher self is going to be invited to drive around in this physical reality. Like, that's amazing. And, that's the gift of a great divining system. I've seen a movie about a mining town and a big accident that happened because of someone being neglectful. Yep, that's right. Like a CEO in a mining company, I'm glad you're doing stuff and getting... Yeah, we're taking the first steps to hold these people accountable, And, because nobody else is doing it. The politicians aren't doing it. It's basically a whole, they do these environmental spills and they pay the money, and it's all recirculating the money amongst themselves, and the people and the earth are left, polluted in the end. So Central Universe, God, what is the sister's name? I know your name. I guess I'm not coming up with it because I'm not supposed to say it. So why does counterclockwise suggest harmony? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. We can't make it any different. It's just what it is. A lot of people find that when they meditate, their body spins in the counterclockwise direction just by itself. A lot of the field interactions with our bodies moves in the counterclockwise direction. I think that the clock setting us up in Western time probably moves that direction for a reason. Excuse me, I can't really tell you why. I can just tell you that is absolutely the way it is in all the worlds that we exist in. So, yeah. Would or have you ever bothered with psychedelics? Well, back in the day, I mean, that's... I was definitely an adventurer with psychedelics, and then basically, I reached a point where I found the truth at a very young age, that everything's happening in the moment, that there is no heaven that I could find through any substance. It's either something that I create right here and now today, or it's something that I'll never create. So I have grown mushrooms that are in harmony with my higher self. And basically, I then created plasma food to feed these mushrooms. And I divined the mushrooms. I asked them what they needed. And then I fed them what they needed. And I grew the perfect food for myself. But I wouldn't say that I ever do hallucinogens or anything like that, because I only ever eat just the tiniest bit of mushrooms. It's called microdosing, you know. And yeah, I microdose, sometimes when I feel I need to. And but yeah, I know how to grow all kinds of things that are in harmony with the higher self. It's quite an adventure, you know. Um, you should watch Soul, new Pixar movie. Yeah, okay. Yeah, send it to me. I'd love to check that out. So yeah, uh, I don't know how many people were here in the beginning, but this whole beginning of this talk was all about, cutting inner child work from being something that takes years into something that takes days or minutes, and the science of the ego, how to embrace the ego, how to talk the ego into calming down, because remember, the ego took control of your life because it had to, because the master went away. Now it's time for all of us to, as the master, to come forth and take control of our own body systems. The way to do that is to put the hand on the spleen, which is on the left side of the body, right at the base of the rib cage, and talk your ego down. You'll feel there's like a kind of energy coming from the spleen when you begin to do this. Is because the ego has had to be in control, because as a child most of us had to go away. The master had to recede into the back of our consciousness, and at that point the ego came online to keep us alive until now. So now you basically go to the ego's home, which is the spleen. You put the hand on the spleen and you say, little ego, thank you so much for keeping me alive. I really deeply appreciate you. Now the master's home. So I need you to be quiet, say it however you want it. The ego can take whatever you have to say. The ego does not want to stay in control. If you are wrestling something you're calling the ego for control, you are not messing with the ego, you're messing with a possession. The ego doesn't want to be in control. The ego is like anybody who's had to work 10 years straight. They want a break. The ego wants a break. The ego loves a break. It'll appreciate this, break from you as the master comes home. And that's what happens when you meditate, The ego can just like chill out, like, okay, I'm not in any physical danger, And when we're divining, again, it's very important to make sure you're not getting information from the ego just because the ego doesn't have information. Like when I go to somebody's land to go find water for them, there's another body within me that contains all that information, that can tell people how deep the well is, where exactly to set up the well digger, the quality of water, and the consciousness of the water. That's not ego. Ego doesn't have that information. Ego has physical survival information. So when you're calming the ego down, let it know. If you have any information that's relevant to my survival, I want to know it. I have an open channel to the ego. The ego needs to tell me something, perfect, I'm listening, But if I'm not in any danger, just, the ego should be sitting there and being quiet, That's the point, but it's never going to go away. The ego is never going to go away. Entities that are invaders in your consciousness can go away, and they will, if you properly use food and objects around you and things to become yourself. Everything that doesn't belong to you will leave your body system. It can't stay if it doesn't have an anchor that's harmonious within you to attach to. So that's why you have to be so careful in what we put into our bodies, because it'll definitely attract things that don't belong to us, So yeah, you can definitely hit me up offline, and we'll be beginning classes soon. I'm just trying to read your comment here. And sorry. How do you learn to speak to your shrooms and what to feed them? I talk to everybody. The thing is, everything has a voice. You just have to be willing to not to meet other people where they are. Like, horses taught me communication back in the early 2000s. Horses taught me, if you don't speak horse, we're going to kick your ass, And I was like, I'm not into danger. A lot of our young generation is into danger. I'm not into danger. And so I already very cautious of horses. And what horses taught me is you've got to speak horse. They're not going to speak English, for the most part. You've got to speak horse. And then it kind of moved from there. Then I began to commune with trees. It's all communion, We're all speaking to each other, When I say we all, I mean every being is communicating in a way, And so, it's a matter of tuning into one's individual consciousness. And, that's something that just takes practice. Start somewhere. Start with a tree, Find someone that wants to talk to you. A cat, a dog, a tree, a mouse. I even found that roaches have a divine consciousness. I had no idea. I thought roaches were gross. Roaches have a noble consciousness. This is why there's a temple for roaches in India, because roaches have a particular consciousness. They don't like to be moved around. They like their own personal space. They have a particular consciousness. And if I wasn't willing to just talk and listen to somebody and meet them on their level, I would have never known. That was a shocker to me. I had no idea. But this is the adventure, of life. It's being in what you don't know, So, yeah, if that's it, everybody, I would just encourage everybody, please give me feedback, like, this is a technique that nobody's talking about. Like, I don't think you'll find anybody talking about this particular take on ego and the inner child. And so, I appreciate all the likes and stuff, and, because it helps me know what's helpful to people. I know it helps the algorithms too, and I guess that helps me as well, but, you see, I don't even use hashtags and stuff. I'm more like, I will use hashtags and stuff, but I'm busy, I'm in the business of creating the kind of world I want to live in. And right now, that's largely revolving around real estate deals and these kind of things, and getting, kind of some things going that, that are bringing money into the Institute in a big way. So I would just say, support, our pages, our YouTube page and stuff, by not only liking the content that brings, enhances your quality of life or gives you information that you didn't have, but please spread it around and encourage people to do the same thing, because it helps me to know what people need to know, One more point to Brother Cushmintz. You would hit me up offline, and, we were talking about the thing that, will you write the person's name right here, Paul something or another, maybe, the book about Wetiko, where he calls Wetiko's the virus of the mind, that is this parasitic entity, if you will. He calls it egophrenia, right? Maniacal egophrenia or something like that. I just want to make sure that people really get a hold of in your consciousness. If ego is the survivor and helping you to survive, why is it that we equate ego with what's destroying everybody's life, that causes people to be fucking maniacs? Excuse my French. That is not ego. If something is causing somebody to be crazy, yeah, Paul Levy wrote this book called like Wetiko, Dispelling Wetiko. That's right. Thank you, brother. And, there's real relevant information in there, because it is a virus of the mind. It's an invader consciousness. I checked to see if it has a home in this, Brother Tahuti, this one's for you. I checked to see if Wetiko set up a home base anywhere in the solar system, because first I checked to see if it's from the solar system. It's not. It's not from this solar system. Is it from Andromeda? No, it's not. Is it from the Milky Way? Milky Way, Wetiko. Yeah, but I don't even get that we are in the Milky Way. This is how deep it is, and this is why I keep quiet on so many things. Because when I check to see what galaxy we're in, I get that we're in Andromeda. Everybody else says we're in, the Milky Way. So, but I don't get at all that we're in the Milky Way galaxy. I get that we are in the outer bands of Andromeda, kind of mixing with the Milky Way. So, what I got when I checked what is the home of Wetiko in this solar system, I got Uranus, which is ironic, because of the whole Uranus thing and, what happens through, rectal manipulation and stuff with mind control, It's really an interesting thing. So, yeah, it's not even from this universe being our universe. It's actually from, the galaxy. Yeah, but yeah, the solar system, no, it's not from the solar system. But it has set up a base on Uranus, and it kind of, works with this planet through that planet. So this is a virus, you could say, of the mind, or a parasite of the mind that indigenous cultures have been very aware of. Now, indigenous cultures have half of the coin of wisdom, people. The modern man, sure, the modern man is really cool and, has, a lot to offer, but it's only one side of the coin. The ancients had the other side of the coin, and they very well understood this virus of the mind. It is not ego. Stop throwing ego under the bus within you. Your ego is a divine body, and it deserves your appreciation. It deserves your love, your adoration, in a way. It deserves its space. It's here. Ego is a righteous body. This Wetiko is not. It's an invader. It's an invader consciousness. Because without Wetiko, you couldn't even think a negative thought. You would never even imagine as a human what somebody thinking a negative thought. It's only because of this mind parasite that we can even think negative thoughts. So we got to get to work in a way dispelling Wetiko, like the brother says in his book. So yeah, but a lot of entities here like Wetiko, it's not just it, but many. Maybe, maybe if we get rid of one, its whole family leaves with it. I'm not so sure about that, because the whole point for me is being my one original self, the one that I am, the one I was born as, the one, and everything else is irrelevant. Everybody else has got to go, So yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to look back, and really begin to see that Wetiko is a divine body. Give it its day. It keeps you alive every day. None of us can make it 2 steps without ego. So yeah, Healthy Ed, thanks for joining us. But I'm out of here. Unless anybody wants to join in or ask any questions, this is last call. Yep, last call. Going once, going twice. Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining me. I really appreciate everybody's support. And, I'll come very soon with some more stuff. I just really felt like I wanted to get this one out there, because a lot of people hit me up offline about the Wetiko stuff that I put out in the past, and, the confusion about the ego. And I just wanted to encourage everybody to know that it's a divine body. The ego's not going anywhere. So peace to everybody, peace to the human family, and we'll get through this stuff together. We came here together, and we'll leave here together. And remember the deal: as long as one of us is suffering, all of us is suffering. So that's why I keep to work. You know what I'm saying? It's it's our job as a family, to be together as a family. So together we'll accomplish everything. Our dreams are our destiny. The will, the voice of the human family is the will and the voice of God. So as one, we'll make this happen. And so keep up all your great works, and we'll talk soon. Peace.